Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Charmed. So there is a lot to digest about this episode. So let's first talk about the fact is, it's so interesting the whole Maggie thing about her, trying to block her emotions. Because it seemed like, obviously, when she did this spell, it seemed like it not only stopped her from feeling anything emotionally, but also physically, because she was swiping her hands over the flame. Obviously you can tell it kind of numbed her and everything like that. I immediately feel I'm not surprised it ended up having the effect it did. It seems like later on they're kind of saying oh, it's just a side effect of the spell that her powers didn't work. They didn't really go into that, but I was assuming, oh yeah, because she's an empath. Her powers are literally tied to her emotions and stuff like that. So I figured blocking your emotions would block your abilities too. Especially in a time when it was necessary the most. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It was her way of trying to deal with the heartbreak, especially because, Mel, kind of went through the same thing, was trying to tell her, no, you have to feel it. You don't want to. But, Mel knew what she was talking about. But I think even for Maggie, because Maggie's a very emotional person, she literally wears her heart literally on her shoulder. With, I think that's why her power fits her. That's why her power manifested ended up being what it was. So, I don't know, it's just kind of fascinating, that breakdown in that regard. Then there's the whole Macy and Galvin situation of him knowing and being whoa, this is crazy, and he's like, oh man, this is so cool. He's like, so you're this and that, you're missing your and then your white person got sent to hell, and then Macy's like, white lighter, but okay, sure. But I love that he was so cool about it. I think it took a little while for him to process, because it's not immediately after the previous episode, at least I don't think. I think it's been a little bit of time. But it is so interesting that he is handling it as well as he is. And I was like, I'm surprised y'all didn't wipe his memory. It's right, Harry's not around, so there's no wiping of memory. But that's going to be interesting, because I'm wondering, because now that Harry's back, what are they going to do about that whole situation? Because still no one knows, because they didn't tell Charity, they didn't tell Harry, so I'm curious, are they going to wipe Galvin's memory? Especially where Mel is, because Mel is not really all about following the rules anymore necessarily. She's kind of going all rebellious, which at the same time, it kind of fits, Mel. She's always kind of been one against the grain, even just from the time we've kind of known her so far across the show. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening in that regard. But I'll get to that in a little bit later on. But I'm curious what's going to happen with the Galvin thing, especially. I even love that they broke into Wagner, Julia's office, and then they pretended that they were making out and stuff like that. And she's like, what the hell are you doing? They're like, oh my God, we're so sorry, this is so unprofessional. But then later on, Macy drops the V word, being a virgin, and it's oh. And she's like, he literally took finding out we're working for a demon better than he did finding out that I'm a virgin. I thought that was kind of an interesting reaction, but it was just kind of he was slowly processing everything, and as he says later on, the virgin that broke the camel's back, of just it being the last point to kind of go, okay, whoa, that's a lot to kind of process, which is interesting. I think her being a virgin's on the lowest end of the totem pole amongst everything she told you, but I get it. It's just one thing on top of another. He was acting like he was as collected as he was about it, so that was just kind of an interesting turn of events. Also, I'm blanking on her name, Charity's sister's name. Isn't it Fiona, I think? That's played by Leah Pipes. We saw her for a little bit in this episode. That's interesting. Obviously, if you don't know, she played Cammy in the originals, which is so interesting just because that. Like I said, I feel the CW and Sci-Fi are the two shows I see that the most in, where it's just kind of I don't know, a lot of familiar actors and stuff like that. Actors from, especially in CW, you see actors in one thing, they'll pop up in something else, or stuff in Sci-Fi. You'll see some of those same actors in something on Sci-Fi on the CW, or just other Sci-Fi shows. It's just kind of interesting. Like I said, I feel like there's got to be a Canadian thing, because I'm pretty sure like I said, I'm not sure, but I think Sci-Fi and the CW probably all film in Vancouver. Just once again, it's cheaper and all that. But it's just kind of interesting. You'll see a lot of familiar faces all around the board, across shows, across both networks and stuff like that. But nevertheless, maybe it's there in a lot of other stuff. I just only notice it more specifically with these particular networks. But nevertheless, moving on. That's just kind of a huge tangent on its own. We do learn a little bit more about Alistair in this episode, his mesmerizing ability. It's interesting because Julia was able to fight it for a little bit. I'm curious, like, was that like a special blade or something she used, or is it just pain in general that seems like it can block it? Like, I guess because she was with Alistair for so long, so she's always prepared, because if you're not prepared for it, you know, because even through the mesmerization, like, she was able to kind of break through it the moment she stabbed herself. So like I said, I don't know whether that's a special blade or not. Because the moment he took it, I guess because it has to be something that can be quick, fast enough, yet painful enough to kind of snap you out of it. So that might be an angle to that as well. But it's also interesting, like, because like Macy, like later on when they fight him, like stabs him in the head with something. He grabs a blade and slices his face open. He kind of reminds me of Cole, like his face and everything. Obviously, like, but just like the whole red face and everything kind of reminds me of Cole from the original series. I want to say Cole's real name was Balthazar. Was that it? It was something like that. It was something for B. I want to say it was Balthazar. I could be 100% wrong on that, but he reminded me of that, kind of interestingly enough. I don't think Cole had that. I don't remember whether Cole really had like a unique ability like that in particular, where it's like, oh, like Alistair can mesmerize people. He's also a big shit talker too. The moment he pops up, it's like, oh, Maggie, oh, so sorry about the heartbreak. And the fact of the matter is, and being like, oh yeah, you know, oh, the sister with the passive ability should stop talking, because you know why? You know what they say about witches with passive abilities? Nothing. Because it's like, yeah, technically speaking, I guess she is the only one that doesn't have like a more offensive ability, which in retrospect is kind of like, oh yeah, that's something she shares with Phoebe, because Phoebe never technically had an offensive ability. I mean, because even like because I talked about it before, like, you know, because Paige's other half white lighter ability allowed her, you know, to teleport stuff. So she kind of had a form of telekinesis, but it was more so like teleportation. So she could use that kind of offensively. So, but then later on, Phoebe ended up getting the levitation thing, which she kind of used offensively. That's a whole thing, which I kind of want to dive into a little bit later on. But I kind of talk about it all in general at once then. Like the whole Harry situation, obviously, like, I was actually shocked that Maggie got put into Tartarus as well. And what was really interesting was the fact that the matter is, in the end, like, I'm skipping around, I do apologize, but I was actually surprised that Dante actually let both Harry and Maggie go. I was so certain they were going to have to choose. But I'm sure that is kind of like the worst place, you know, especially because they were being tortured by memories. It's like, as someone who feels so much, it's like, that's got to be like the worst place for Maggie. I'm curious, is that how they torture demons down there? You know, just like criminals and stuff like that too? Or is it just people like Harry and Maggie? I'm assuming everyone gets tortured like that. So it's like, what does a demon get tortured with? Or, you know? Because that's always the thing too I'm thinking about, like in this case, like, is this kind of like a supernatural thing where at one point, like in that regard, I mean like the TV show, where it's like demons were once human at some point in time, but it's just been so whittled down that there's no human side of them left, so they're fully demon. Like, I'm curious about that. Or they just, like, have they just existed and it's just like demons just, bam, they exist. It's not like they were human and they returned demon. You know, that's what I'm curious about. So, because that's why I'm like, if they were human at one point in time, that would make sense how you tortured them. But like I said, I don't know whether that's like, if you're a good enough person, because we know Fiona was down there for whatever reason. Maybe she was being tortured the same way just because she was like a witch and stuff like that. And they kind of borderline, kind of similar to a human. That's what I'm wondering about in that regard. But Harry learned a lot more about his past. Like, he used to be a criminal. And then that moment of, like, you know, like it being too much for Maggie. I'm sure her blocking her emotions and then it all hitting her at once made that even harder. So it's like, you're an empath, plus you were blocking your emotions, plus they're torturing you like that. All that compounded upon itself probably made her situation even harsher, I feel like. But nevertheless. But then Harry took more and more of the pain to the point, you know, so he ended up remembering more and more about himself. But what I thought was kind of an interesting outcome to that whole thing too is, like, you know, Maggie read, you know, Harry's mind, and he was kind of like, what was it he said? Like, let love be your strength, essentially. And Maggie went over and she grabbed, you know, Macy and Mel, and then, like, that power activated, and it's like she created a spell, because she even said it herself, where it's kind of like what happened is, like, it seemed like basically she connected them on an emotional level. It seems like it's her power as an empath growing potentially, like putting them on the same wavelength potentially to create that spell, like to kind of give them, like maybe it kind of jump started something in their minds to kind of create the spell on the spot. And maybe that's just something she can do now, is help create spells on the spot. Now, like I don't know whether that's a new manifestation of her already existing empath ability, or is it just a new ability on its own? Because that's something I never thought about before. Because in my head, I thought like the whole, like for example, Mel, / Piper's whole ability to freeze time, and like obviously eventually Piper got the whole, once I always refer to it as blow shit up ability, but I say maybe it could be referred to as a combustion ability. Either way, I thought those were two separate things, but in retrospect, it's like maybe that's like the advancement. Maybe it's kind of like a augmentation to the freeze time ability. I mean, if it was an augmentation, you would assume it would completely take over, but Piper always kept the freezing, and so it is two separate abilities. So it makes me wonder in this series in particular, with what happened to Maggie, will they ever gain other abilities like in the original series, or are they just going to be advancements on their already pre-existing abilities? So like in Macy's case, will her telekinesis just get stronger or kind of manifest in a different way? And the same thing for Mel's freezing time. Will it just manifest in a different way and kind of gain strength into another form? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I'm excited to see kind of what ends up happening, what ends up being the aftermath of all of that. It is sad that Parker kind of gets blamed for telling his dad about it, even though he never told his dad anything, that was kind of Julia, so it kind of works against him. But even with it all said and done, Maggie still feels it's that complicated thing, because it's like, even with it all said and done, I still think about him, because even Mel was kind of like, I was kind of actually going to start on the path to forgiving him, because it's like, I thought he helped us out and everything. But even Macy was like, but the fact of the matter is, think about the fact is growing up with a dad who can literally rip your face off and stuff like that, so that was really interesting. It's also interesting too that this all circles back to the Harbinger, because we haven't circled back to that for such a long time. I mean, the fact of the matter is Alistair couldn't do anything about it anyway, just because of the enchantment and stuff like that. Which I also love, that all ties into that whole complicated thing of like, the elders didn't want to do anything. It's like, the piece of the scythe that Mel destroyed was the only way to open Tartarus again, until the whole Dante angle came up. But like beyond that, the elders like, we don't know. Honestly, we don't care. He's a white lighter who's not really worth it. Maybe if he was an elder, they might have made an exception, but it might have been a situation that even if it was like Charity in that position, they might not have helped, just because it was kind of like, it's not worth the trouble. But in his case, he's a white lighter. There's a whole bunch of them. They're probably, disposable and stuff like that. I don't know if there's a whole bunch of white lighters in this continuity or not. I would assume so, just because like, there was a whole bunch in the original series as well, just kind of like helping other groups of witches, white lighters. Yeah, because he had multiple charges at one point in time, one of them being Fiona. So so I'm sure it's not just like one particular white lighter. I'm sure there are other white lighters out there we just haven't been introduced to yet. So that's probably going to be something we see come up. But all this whole situation just solidifies Mel's kind of rebelliousness against the elders, because she thinks like they're in it for themselves. That's why she's helping out Jada, and they kind of like, Jada kisses her, she's like, "Whoa, I'm sorry," but it's like, and then Mel kisses her back. But I saw that coming. Interestingly enough, just because Mel feels like it's like Jada's the only person she can trust, because it's like you haven't, it's like words are cheap, or actions, speak volume essentially. And it's like, the fact is Jada was able to help, even with them kind of potentially being on opposite sides and stuff like that. Jada still was willing to help with their white lighter situation. She gave them advice that would help them save Harry, even telling them to get to Harry before what happened to Fiona happens to. I'm assuming that's Fiona, just because of the whole, which is interesting, what that whole Keeper of the Flame situation is all about. What that is, we still don't know what that's all about, but either way, which does lead to an interesting situation, because we see Nico pop up and she's taking pictures. I'm assuming she's after Jada, because even though Jada's probably been around doing some shady stuff here and there, probably some stuff that's probably warranted some attention from humans, in particular cops. So that's definitely interesting, because it's like, crappy timing because it's like just when something's about to happen between Mel and Jada, her ex comes back into town. Her ex who doesn't remember her. Like, I'm sure that's what that's all pertaining to as well. I mean, it might also be about her partner too. Like, even though, like, well, no, because all of time was rewound, so that was kind of all undone. So it's like, in this new timeline, he didn't, I forgot if he stayed dead or not in this timeline. I don't remember. Which that's also another thing too, because of the whole Nico situation playing out the way it did. That's why I kind of feel like the Galvin situation might play out in a similar regard of like, he has to wipe his memories. But then again, I was talking about the fact that Mel might be like, no, the fact of the matter is we're not going to follow the elders' rules anymore. If Galvin's going to know, he's going to know. So, but I'm sure it's just kind of like an unrelated thing yet related thing is what's bringing Nico back into town and stuff like that, which is going to add an interesting element to all this, because it's like, you know, just like I said, because Mel kind of even said it, she's like, I just got over Nico, not just got over, but it took a while, but I finally got over Nico. And it's like, your ex coming back into your life, especially because technically you didn't break up, because you were technically never a couple in this new timeline and everything. So that just adds heaviness to it, because it's like you remember everything while she remembers nothing. So that's a complicated situation, especially if she's going to be asking you questions, probably popping up being like, yo, so do you know this Jada person? And then eventually it's probably going to be a situation of you're going to have to protect Nico from Jada and the Sarkana, because they can't be stopped by a human or cop, or let them know what they're up to. Potentially, I don't know. Because let's not forget, Jada also talked about the fact that the matter is using their powers to help out the greater good and stuff like that. So that's probably what caught her up in all of this. Like, maybe Jada did some stuff that, you know, maybe she robbed the place for money to kind of help support the Sarkana, or at the very least, maybe she hurt a criminal and it turned into a murder investigation, and that's what Nico's doing here. Like I said, I feel like that might be the tie-in, but we'll kind of have to wait in that regard. Then there's the Parker situation with Maggie, and that's all complicated. But then it's the situation of, like, Parker saying something interesting where he's like, actually, my dad's leaving town. Which, he's like, I've never seen my dad running scared before, whatever you and your sisters did. So, I mean, they were able to match him in power, even being as powerful as he is. Because even Charity was talking about the fact of the matter is he's a powerful demon, because, like, she's like, I've never been mesmerized before, because, you know, elders are pretty damn powerful. But even, I guess, even elders' powers don't even compare to the power of the charmed ones, you know. So that's what makes him so special after all. But then there's the real big twist at the end I didn't see coming, where it's like, oh wow, DNA shows the fact of the matter is me, Macy, and Maggie had the same dad. That's insane. That's crazy. So that means, which is so ironic, which is such an interesting twist. Once again, they're doing such interesting things, because it's like, oh, the believed to be half sister is technically the full sister, whereas Maggie's been living with her half sister the entire time. Now that's a complicated situation. I guess once again, it has to add that layer to it, because we're already starting off with the half sister storyline rather than the full blood sister storyline, which I guess technically we are, but we're kind of blending both of them while also creating something new. That's so interesting. Like, that was, like I said, that's a nice twist on that regard. And that's definitely going to be interesting too, because it's like, especially the direction Mel goes, like, I'm sure it won't change anything, but it might hurt her head a little bit to think like, well, like, me and Maggie grew up the entire time thinking we were real sisters, but it's like, that's not the case. So, also makes you wonder, so if they have the same dad, well, no, I'm misinterpreting this whole situation. They have the same dad, but doesn't that mean Maggie has a different mom? Because, like, it was like a 52% connection, just because, like, the fact is they have the same dad doesn't mean they have the same mom. So they have different moms, potentially. So only, okay. So is their mom not Maggie's mom? Because now I'm even confusing myself now, because they have 100% in common if they had the same dad and mom, meaning they don't have the same mom, but they have the same dad, right? Am I being stupid about that? I think I'm thinking about this wrong. I'm legitimately thinking about this wrong. I do apologize. I'm being an idiot. I'm confusing the hell out of myself. They have the same moms, they just don't have the same dad, which is interesting. But the point I was trying to make is, I would assume that Macy's dad is the reason why, like, whatever, like, that darkness in her would be in her is because of that. But why wouldn't it be in Maggie too? You know, that's an interesting thing, and that's something I'm very interested into diving into. I kind of hurt my brain with all that stuff, kind of getting caught up. I overcomplicated that in my head. Nevertheless, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.